Thank you very much for joining us. In a world driven by knowledge, literacy forms the foundation for personal growth and society progress. However, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, reports that only 9.6% of primary school pupils in Kano State demonstrate reading proficiency, while 11.2% possess basic numeracy skills. This was disclosed by the chief of the Kano Field Office, Mr. Rahman Mohammed, during a news conference marking the 2025 International Day for Education on Friday in Kano. While outlining intervention programs across the state, Mr. Mohammed reaffirmed UNICEF's commitment to reducing illiteracy levels. Gentlemen, I'm sure this report does not surprise anyone, but the surprising thing is that there's been no level of progress despite several interventions. What exactly is driving this trend of out-of-school children in Kano State? Adeoye, let me start with you.
Well, first of all, I think we must recognize the fact that education is the window that opens up opportunities that can lead to the development of any country, the growth and development of any country. Education is the most important investment you can have in any human being. If you don't have education, the alternative is ignorance, which fuels conflict, which fuels underdevelopment. So when a state or a country has education deficit, you should expect all sorts of problems, that we... So in Kano, a state of 16.3 million, I think it's next after Lagos. And with a very long history of civilization, there has been Islamic education since the 14th century. So we are now talking of 2025, and we discovered that a lot of children in Kano, they have no access to basic education. And the consequences are terrific. So I'm not surprised about the figure given by UNICEF. If you go to Kano today, you can feel and see it. Hundreds of thousands of children, 2 years, 3 years on the streets. You keep on wondering, everywhere. When you are eating somewhere in a restaurant, they cluster around you, trying to take your remains. So I think it's a potential danger for Kano State, and not just Kano State, for the country itself, because it's going to provide breeding ground, for terrorist organizations to recruit them. When children are growing up, they are green, raw, and they're vulnerable to all sorts of ideas. So, and that's why states usually have education to be able to tailor the minds of people that are growing up and to give them value about life. So when we have this kind of station, I think it's embarrassing. It's not only Kano alone. Most states in Northwest face this major challenge. And until we're able to address this problem, it's really going to haunt us for many years to come. In Kano, we have no fewer than 1 million children that are out of school. So that's a very bad indices. No matter what development you are talking about, building roads, building bridges, once some people that have no basic access to education, there's no way they can help themselves.
Asoko, let me come to you. Is population growth a major factor here, or there are several factors to this effect?
Population growth might be one of them, but I would not want to, dabble into religion or what people really want, okay? But if we have more people, or more married people, let me use that, definitely they want to give birth. And but you can't stop people from giving birth. But you are also, anybody that is giving birth must also make sure that is responsible for those children.
Government cannot stop, but government can control.
No, but yeah, government can control, but that comes from the federal government. The federal government will have to put birth control or population control in place, But I know sometimes the fear is usually religious. They have to look at so many considerations, especially religion. You can't stop anybody. But if federal government comes, like take for instance China, there was a time China put a peg that you must not have more than one child. Then later they noticed that there was a policy that that they wanted to conquer the world, and they increased the number to 2. Why? Because they know that by the time they increase the number of people, if the population grows, they'll be able to conquer the world or move further with their own plan. So I think for us to have population control will go a long way. You know, will go a long way in trying to reduce the number of adults. It is very pathetic that we are having lots of children who are not in school. But be that as it may, I know the governor is also trying his best to see how we can move these children back to school. We have 1 million children out of school in Kano.
In Kano State alone.
And yes, alone. And from the statistics from the survey that was carried out, Kano, Katsina, and then Jigawa have the highest number of out-of-school children. But I know Governor Abba Yusuf last year declared a state of emergency on education. In fact, in 2024 and 2025, the budget for Kano, education had 30% last year and also this year. So it means that the governor is making efforts to see how we can reduce the number of out of school. He has a program with, I think, the World Bank that is trying to, give, there's a project for girls, whereby the girls that are in that project, in that workshop, are even paid, I think, 20,000 every month, to encourage the girl child to go into education. So, but I think he should also expand it the more, to involve more children. I know the last administration tried to bring in school feeding, and I know the impact of school feeding for children.
But do you know that in some northwestern states, education is free but not compulsory?
So that is why. So now, and I think it was during Obasanjo's time that they made education compulsory. So in fact, it is against the law if you do not even send your child to school, because the basic, your child must have the basic education. And that basic is from primary 1 to primary 6. Is a must. So what the government should do, because when it comes to education, education falls in the purview of the state government. But the federal government must insist now that state government must ensure that children go to school. Parents who do not send their children to school should be arrested.
Sanctioned.
Not sanctioned, arrested.
Okay.
If you have 10 children, let them go to primary school. Let them start from there. And then the government must also ensure that the environment is also conducive for them. The only way, I remember when this school feeding program was in place, I remember in Oshu, they had a high number of children going to school back when Aregbesola was still the governor. So if government should insist, and also government is also, if the governors are really, really truthful with themselves, and they really want to deal with this out-of-school children, Jumoke, is very easy. One, what is the incentive? What do you think children like? They like food. They like apples. They like oranges. Put that in the class. Governor Pitamba, go and see the fantastic job the governor is doing. Governor Pitamba is feeding children, is building infrastructure for children, is making the school conducive for children to go to school. And this is not rocket science. Governors are getting more money. Kano, for instance, is getting more money than even Lagos, if I'm not mistaken.
So I don't even think school feeding program is the issue, but for these state governors to try and make sure that corruption is not the order of the day when this program starts.
That is where monitoring comes in. But first, it has to come from an idea. Because if you don't have the idea and you don't have the mind for you to do it, it won't work. So the first, he has to put in a plan. I hope the governor is watching and his cabinet members are also watching. For you to reduce the number of out-of-school children is not about when you are passing, you are seeing children, you are giving them money or giving them food. No, move them to the classroom, because these are the future leaders of tomorrow. If these children are educated, even them too will sleep easy, because by the time these children don't have anything to do, nothing is engaging them. Look at the August 1 problem during that protest. We saw children everywhere, and it was in the north. So they need to find a way of moving these children into the classroom and giving them proper education. The basic ones are what we need. Look at this survey that was carried out by UNICEF. What is it? It's just how to read and how to put 1 plus 1 together. That is just what they are saying. They didn't talk about Introtech. They didn't talk about social studies. They didn't talk about physics. Just how to read and how to just say 1 plus 1 is equals to 2. That is the survey that they carried. And they had, look at the number.
All right, Adige, let me come to you because, I mean, if governors had, Northwest governors, Northeast governors had declared states of emergencies on education, yet we still have this high number of out-of-school children. What exactly is driving it? There are several factors. Some have talked about poor state funding for education, persistent insecurity crisis. These are some of the factors. And if you also look at this report, 989, I mean, just few numbers from 1 million naira,
1 million.
or roughly 32% of the population were currently not enrolled in formal education. If we've had enormous interventions by international organizations, and yet we have these numbers, what's happening?
You see, the ruling class in these areas, don't forget that the leaders we have had since 1960, many of them, majority of them are from this part of the country, Northwest. At least Katsina has produced 2 presidents for Nigeria, you know, President Buhari, the former President Yar'Adua, and of course, head of state. Buhari was also head of state for, you know, about 2 years. Then we also have Kano that has produced Murtala Mohammed and then Abacha. So the problem is the crisis of leadership. What we are talking about, it's not about whether the population is Islam or not. No. Indonesia has the largest number of Muslims, you know, 277 million people, out of which 241 are Muslims. In fact, it's the largest Muslim nation in the world. But the literacy rate in Indonesia is 99.3%. Saudi Arabia has a population of 36 million people. The literacy rate is 99.4%. These are, you know, Islamic, the homes of Islam. So what we have in this part of the country is the character of leadership. They are not interested in investing in education, you know, of the people. And you know, when politics becomes a profit, it's always good for people to be less educated. Because these are people that they don't ask questions when you go out to campaign for your votes. When you are campaigning for vote, you don't talk about education, you don't talk about environment. Or maybe,
I do apologize, maybe we should say the leaders are not interested in investing in formal education.
Well, even both formal and informal, you understand? Because the UNICEF is saying that 11%, they don't have numeric knowledge. They can't even count 1 plus 1, 3 for 11%. So it's a leadership crisis. You know, Kano has been, in fact, one of the greatest, you know, states in West Africa. So, but when you have leaders who, when we had, I think at the time we had Rimi, Rimi, you know, indicated a lot of commitment. And you know, people like Aminu Kano, they fought for these issues. PRP, People's Redemption, you know, a party of Nigeria. So I think it's leadership problem. You know, we need a leader that, look at what is going on in Borno State, where the leader is building schools. You see those schools everywhere. Building, you know, modern classrooms and ensuring that people go into this, you know, making it compulsory for them. So it's the leadership that needs to redefine in terms of scale of preference. What they think is most important for the people. And it's not only Kano alone. It's even in other parts of the country. The standard of education, you know, the number of dropouts is increasing. So it's not just a problem that is associated with Kano alone. It's a national problem, except that in Kano is more pronounced. So the government just needs to place education as priority beyond any other.
Maybe I should play the devil's advocate. We need to move on, but perhaps I should play the devil's advocate. Maybe the reason the leaders and the governors are not investing in education, formal education, is because they understand that people do not want to be in the four walls of a classroom. I mean, perhaps they understand that formal education is not for us, and we understand our people, and that's why we're not investing in it.
Let me tell you. Well, you are saying devil's advocate anyway. But the thing is, most politicians will not even want them to get educated. That is number one. Okay. So that they will continue to rule them.
Easy political exploitation.
So sometimes it is political. Sure, you get.
Yes.
But as it stands now, as it stands today, whether it was Awolowo that said something about the poor, that if you do not educate your the poor today, in future they will come after you. I think it was Awolowo that said something almost similar. So the thing is, if you don't educate them today, if you don't educate somebody today, a child today, tomorrow that child will haunt you. So it is as simple as that. So the governors must have that. They won't be governors forever. Even when they have money, their children have money, these children of the poor that they did not educate will haunt their own children.
All right.
So the best thing is educate the children. As you're educating your children, educate the children of the poor and let everybody find his way based on destiny.
I think the parents are also some sort of factors here, because another significant factor is this cultural practice of insisting on acquiring basic Islamic education before enrolling children in Western education.